Okay, all right. Welcome and thank you for joining us here today. We invited you to share with you some impressions I collected during my first year as German ambassador here in Ghana, and also to provide you with an outlook regarding upcoming events this year and in the coming year. Now, the first year for me as German ambassador to Ghana was an amazing year. The welcome by the people of Ghana were just amazing. And I was told before coming here that the greatest treasure of Ghana is its people, and that is certainly true. It has been a very, very warm welcome. I had the chance to travel the country quite a bit. I went several times to Kumasi, to Tamale, to Savannah. I went up to Bar, all the way to Hamale, from Axim to Takoradi and Cape Coast, and Tema and the Walter River. So I covered quite some territory. And the first year, I have to admit, was what others call a paradise for hardworking diplomats. Some important milestones took place. The first most important one was the one in Germany taking place when Angela Merkel stepped down after 16 years as head of the German government. So the big challenge for us here in Ghana was to try to reconnect the Ghanaian administration with the new German administration. And now, after more than half a year, I think we can finalize that we have been quite successful. His Excellency the President just met once again for the second time now our German Chancellor at the margins of the UN General Assembly Week, when there was a gathering with African leaders. Your foreign minister just attended a conference organized by our foreign minister in Berlin that was about strengthening resilience of democratic societies, and there was a very fruitful exchange between the two ministers. So this, I think, has been quite successful. Secondly, we all had to witness important developments in the Sahel regions with several coups d'etats. Once again, we would like to commend His Excellency the President for his leadership in ECOWAS, which is, of course, a more relevant institution than ever before if we look at the developments in neighboring Burkina Faso. We are following that with great interest and concern. As the Ghanaians, we are well aware of the risk of spillovers that are involved, and we commend Ghana for taking the initiative to host a conference later in October in the format of the so-called Accra initiative. We believe that is very, very timely. It's very important that the African countries in the region take the leadership and also show ownership. And this is what this conference will be about, and we are happy to support. Then, of course, a very sad development took place when Russia decided to wage a war in Ukraine, an incredible breach of international law, disrespect of the right of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this, of course, affected not only us in Europe, but also countries around the globe, including our African partners. And this brings me to the point that we believe that it is just not an option to remain silent at the sidelines regarding the developments, regarding the fact that Russia is openly threatening to use nuclear arms, is just crossing a red line. We understand that even China and India are no longer willing to support this move by the Russians. So I think we all together should join forces to defend the Charter. It's our Charter of the United Nations. We all together should be defending it. Now, the fourth development, of course, was the very painful decision for the government of Ghana to reopen the dialogue with the IMF. We are following the developments in the economic fields. We note that there are many, many families in Ghana who are suffering and have a hard time to secure the food for all family members. So in this very challenging time, we support Ghana and, of course, are looking forward to the delegation of the IMF, who is in the country, to hopefully put together a program that will enable Ghana to move forward. There are, of course, important external reasons who has an impact on the situation here in Ghana. First of all, the COVID, later on the Russian war in the Ukraine, with the negative effect on the energy market. And then, of course, the interest rate policies that also affected Ghana's possibilities to refinance its debt. At the same time, also, people in Ghana also hint to the internal factors, which are well known to everybody. The problem in the energy sector, where important debt is piled up each year. We know that Ghana still has a very, very low tax to GDP ratio, one of the lowest in all over Africa. And but then, of course, there is a problem regarding transparency and what I call the economics of politics in Ghana. So it's a crisis scenario internationally and nationally, but at the same time, I would like to try to spread some optimism. We in Europe know that whenever there is a crisis, we will see some improvement and some progress in European integration. So there are always chances in times of crisis. And I would encourage our Ghanaian partners to also not only look on the dark side, but also look on the promising part. And let me point to some elements. As you are well aware, the decision of Russia to wage a war in Ukraine has caused enormous trouble in the energy supply for Europe. So Europe is forced to redesign the energy matrix in a much more faster way than it has been planned. Now, one of the main elements of this new energy matrix of the European industry will be related to hydrogen power. And this brings me to Ghana, where we have a huge potential of untouched renewable energy sources. You have enormous hydropower sources, and all this could be easily imagined that you can combine it and engage in production of green hydrogen and derivatives. So we are trying to put together a group of interested investors and try to link them with possible off-takers in Europe and hope to have private sector-driven process in this field. I think this is a very promising avenue. Secondly, it's about fertilizer. You all know that due to the Russian war in the Ukraine, fertilizer has become there's a shortage of fertilizer reported, and this of course opens opportunities for local producers of fertilizers. So I would encourage you to that Ghanaian investors and companies should also look into this possibility. There's a complaint about rising prices of imports. So I think then it's time to think about import substitution and try to think about how can we increase the amount of locally produced products, especially in the field of agriculture and food processing. And finally, what the European industry experienced with Russia these days and the risks that are involved if you are too dependent on one country, that also has an effect on how European industry is looking at China these days. So there's a lot of discussion going on that it might be that European industry might be well advised to diversify more the sources globally. So this again should open new opportunities for Ghana and Ghana industry. So I want to flag that German industry stands ready to engage with our Ghanaian partners in these fields. This brings me to the first point I want to look forward to. That is the upcoming Joint Economic Commission that will take place in October in Accra, when high-level representatives from the German Ministry of Economics and Climate are coming to Accra to discuss future cooperation of the private sector. And secondly, I would like to point out to the upcoming negotiations on our future development cooperation. As you might be aware, Germany is one of the last remaining important bilateral development cooperation partners of Ghana. Our portfolio amounts to some 700 million euros, and we focus on what I call the 3G. It's on green energy, on growth, and on good governance. And I'm pleased to note that we have achieved quite a few important successes. I just had the pleasure to be present when His Excellency the President commissioned the solar power plant in Kaleo. That's an important milestone in our portfolio for the green energy field. We strongly believe that there's a lot more to come in this field. Ghana has not yet touched its full potential here. Secondly, on growth, an important development, well, milestone was the creation of the Development Bank of Ghana. We have closely supported this process. The German Development Bank 𝑘fw was one of the important partners in this, and also is one of the financial partners for the launch of this bank. Secondly, with regard to growth, it's about vocational training. We are very pleased with the progress achieved in reforming the TVET structure. It has become just much more streamlined, and this, we believe, is a guarantee for better standards in the vocational training, which is an important condition for Ghanaian industry being successful in the competition in the upcoming African Continental Free Trade Area. So only if you have well-trained personnel, you will be able to compete successfully in a competitive environment. And thirdly, and this is regarding good governance, we are happy about the progress we have achieved with the DELREF software implementing. This is about strengthening the capacity of local communities to generate revenues on their own. Basically, it's mainly the property tax to be collected, and the progress that has been reported in some of the local governments is just amazing. So this is a very important element to strengthen democratic resilience bottom up. So it's about the capacity of the local governmental institutions to provide the basic services to the people, which is in return important for that people believe in the advantages of a democratic system. This year we celebrate 65 years of bilateral relations between Ghana and Germany. In Germany, 65 is the retirement age, but I'm convinced that we are far away from thinking about retirement. There are so many activities going on and coming up, and there's so much more to come. We are really excited. We have the German Days in Ghana coming up. This is a series of events. We try to showcase a little bit the broad spectrum of activities, the broad spectrum of institutions active here in Ghana, and also to combine this with some fun events, including some cycling activities and a DJ club night to just complete the picture. And before the year ends, of course, we are all looking forward to the World Cup in Qatar, and we all hope that Germany will beat Ghana in the finals in Qatar. You have a very experienced Ghanaian German head coach, so we are very we are quite sure that you will be going very far in the tournament. All right. So looking ahead, we also would like to inform you that next year our German Archaeological Institute will bring an important show to Ghana. It's the African, the Planet Africa show, an archaeological time travel that will be shown first in Ghana and later in Berlin. I'm told that one of the biggest challenges is that young people cannot afford to go to school for 2 or 3 years without working. So they are, because they need to generate some resources for themselves and their families. So that, of course, is a very limiting factor. So we have come up with the so-called voucher system that supports people who are following vocational training. These vouchers are managed by our financial arm of the Development Corporation, of the KfW Bank here. And so this is a very practical approach to supporting young people in getting their vocational training. We support, again, in development of curricula for the training. We are also supporting Ghana in setting up a reporting mechanism, so to create transparency in the sector so people can follow up how these improvements in the sectors are implemented and are progressing. And we, of course, are trying to intensify the links between technical and universities for applied science, how we call them, between Ghana and Germany. I very recently talked to the Vice Chancellor of Tamale Tech University, who just spent time in Germany trying to understand better the way the German universities of applied science are set up, and so I think the specialty of these universities is the close network they establish with the industries in the area. Now, that is, of course, sometimes a challenge here in Ghana. For example, in Tamale, the challenge is that there is very little industry, so it is very difficult for these universities to establish a network. So the Vice Chancellor took the decision to, instead of linking with the industry that is not around, that he would link with the communities who are in need of basic services. And so he is creating a network with the communities and trying to specialize his university in developing the basic services for the communities in the area. So that is a very concrete way of how universities in Ghana and Germany engaged in a dialogue and try to develop their system further and to serve the needs better of the people. And looking at cultural diplomacy, that is, of course, a very broad spectrum of activities, which is not always, or in very few cases, only steered by an embassy, but it is more about the broad spectrum of activities that are ongoing between institutions and people in Germany and Ghana. I just last night learned about a group of 25 school children coming this week to Ghana to meet their partner school here and learn about Ghana. And so this is what is so amazing about the relation between Germany and Ghana, the intensity of activities that is taking place every day between so many different actors on so many different layers. We have, for example, 100 at this point in time, 150 young Germans working as volunteers in Ghana. You hardly hear about it, but it's. I would also view this as an important element in cultural diplomacy, because these young people are establishing links with Ghana, which will translate in future activities. And of course, we have. You can also take the German Days in Ghana as one example of how we try to make this dimension of relations between Ghana and Germany more visible to more people here in Accra, including a DJ night and a cycling activity and of course a reception for the business sector and so on. The two major elements of support for the industrialization of Ghana are the two I mentioned. So the most important one in this year was the creation of the Development Bank of Ghana, which is really an important tool to support small and medium-sized enterprises. I think we strongly believe that the small and medium-sized sector is keen for creating jobs and driving inclusive growth. Secondly, Germany is a country. We don't have oil and gas. We don't have gold. We don't have bauxite. We don't have lithium. What we have is the minds of our people, and we have to make best use of it. So training has always been a very important element and a driving force for industrial development in Germany. And we strongly believe that Ghana is not a low-income country. So the only chance Ghana can compete in the upcoming African Continental Free Trade Area is if they have better trained workforce and can deliver better quality. And this is the only way forward for Ghana. So they have to invest into training their people, and this is why we are so active and keen to support the development of the 𝑨𝑵𝑵𝑰𝑽𝑬𝑹.